All right, next section, side 1A. The poems in this section are titled Mythos, Love Thang Part 2, Unit 201. Um, the name of the section is Making Joy. Mythos. Poems I wrote to Mama from February 9th, 2018. In your eyes, in your eyes, I've seen my skin for the first time. In belonging to it, I know is no longer the burden of my own reflection. In your body, in your body, I have found pleasure untarnished by the markings of lust. In your body, I have cleansed my wounds and tasted eternity. In your hands, in your hands, I caress refuge. I mold my face in your palms and know that my hope can dance freely in sanctity. In your mind, in your mind exists the rhythms of elders, silenced, but a voice now with every whisper you muster in my undeserving ears. In your love. In your love, I can rest, I can weep, I can breathe, I can love. Right? Love thing. I'd call us a love story, but I met you a week after I attempted suicide. I'd call us a love story, but my daddy never taught me how to write a love song. It's been a year since he's attempted suicide. I wanted a love story. I thought if I ignored what was so obvious to my mother, I could write our names in the makeup you left in my pillowcase when you rescued me. You said, I got you. 2 years later, there was a baby, but I skipped a chapter or two. We did the long distance thing, booked a flight or two, fucked like jackrabbits until we was getting fed up with the distance. I moved from Houston to Minnesota, left a good job too. I explained to my daddy, but that man would never listen. And what did my mama know? Well, she knew me, and I knew risperidone, hospitalizations, and finding love where love don't belong, but I'd pay just about any pound of flesh to clip the wings of my shadow. So I booked a flight, laid my bags down in your burden, and I'd never seen you before. You looked at me with the kind of discontent only Alice Walker might write about, might underline, might describe in a woman's grief, but I'm just a man, and sad men don't listen. I already told you about my daddy. See, I got me a job, and then another, then another. Worked overnights at the psych ward when you started, worked overnights at the psych ward when you started throwing up. Nurse said, You're gonna be parents, and how my spine coiled like your displeasure. She read, Ain't no motherfucking way in the boiling of our silence. But that baby coming, that baby came. And between that time, we loved on each other like Baldwin predicted our fucking on a napkin. Codependency more addictive than codeine when she needs me. We slow danced in the maternity ward while our little girl escaped from our anxiety onto my bare chest, and I still drink from her first breaths. And then I lost my job, and you resented me, and I found another. And you, but what the fuck is COVID? And what the fuck is Wuhan? And what the fuck is September? And what the fuck is a million dead? And y'all telling me my hands are a hex? And when I'm gonna hug my mama again? And the year is 2021, and that's when your mind tore into fracture. You lost your way somewhere away from my negligence and began to offer your body to dead men of your imagination. You performed rituals for gods I could not see. And this little girl hollered for her mother who couldn't see past the murals in her head of voices I could not convince others of that had invaded my home. You spend a week in New York to covet the love of somebody you never knew. And my heart doesn't beat the same after the days I spent spiraling down the circles of hell. Excuse me, spiraling down the circles of hell, dying to bring my lover back home off that Central Park bench. And you came home, but you never came home. So I packed our bags and I came home. I wrestled a child from their mother and booked a flight with my life in a backpack until I laid my burdens down in my mama's grief. No parent should ever see their baby hurt like I was hurting getting off that plane. And what about my love story? It's somewhere behind the door of a residence where my safety haunts the hallway still. I promised these night terrors secrecy. I promised you anonymity, but I promised my daughter her daddy. And these passages hold my happy days hostage when I write over them to find another poem that begins with words that ain't got shit to do with the ones I can't find, but then hogtied my faith into submission. My happy days, oh happy days. When we slow danced in a unit 2 floors below 2 years before I checked into this unit, this ward that I know too well. 2 suicide attempts before I met you, remember? And this is where I found the love of my life, coloring book in hand. All she's allowed to hold, a coloring book. The same ones we were supposed to show our daughter how to use in the love story I wrote when you said the words, I got you. But honey, you didn't have you. And that ain't your fault. I know better. Now I got to find me, my story, somehow. A story my mother knew all too well. Told you about my daddy, told you about me. That's why mama never got around to calling it a love thing. Love thing part two for my mama. Desperation. I was desperate. Handprints in Nakagawa Forest, handprints on a Delta flight itinerary, handprints left in a car window when my daughter whines under the golden arches. My thumbprint left on the phone screen because Tinder got to give me what it ain't never had, and there's no time to waste when she's moved on. What about my love story? What about the questions? You said I was on the run, just like Daddy. I remember when he moved us from Maryland to the Lone Star State, and I still can't find the constellation he promised was the way out of his misery. I must have looked just like him. A maroon, but my intrusive thoughts were the master's mastiff. You said I was desperate, but that I needed to catch that flight to come back and ask you, why didn't you stop me? When I said Minnesota. You said I needed to learn how to sit down, how to crawl, how to sleep in a hurricane, how to pray with my eyes open. I remember holding your grandbaby under fireworks when she could do no more than feed and holler. Where she runs up my arm like her legs done caught the Holy Ghost, she wouldn't move a muscle then. I have to remind her nothing has changed. Where I call the woman a monster now, I called her my friend in the storm. Hurricane Harvey and her company was a life raft. The water receded. So much has changed. Back then, she felt like safety, so I ran to her. But kindness ain't protection, so I ran back when it seemed she grew fangs. And I still sleep with the lights on, machete under the mattress. Like granddaddy, your daddy, sleeps with a gun. Like his daddy had a plan. Had to get out of Dodge, right? Somebody was on his trail. That somebody was my great great granddaddy. Of course, because it wouldn't be black if it wasn't the blues. Now, this nigga was a mean son of a bitch. Killed his wife and his sister, too. I guess some brothers don't run. They cleave through safety nets for the hole in their stomach, and granddaddy, your daddy, found his daddy lying in the field with a hole in his head and went running into a bottle, running into grandma. Okay, give me 1 second, okay? All right. He ran his fist through a couple running mouths that run from the devil in silence, that end up running into a shotgun from the upper room, aiming them down. But for most niggas, we don't turn around. Somebody told somebody that if you stop, it's going to get you dead. And then that somebody forgot to tell me it's all in my head. But even that's too easy. It's all on the floor, in my spit, in my body when I done opened me up to check the soil level for everything. But what's got to save me? You told me I had to go, to come back, to know there's grace in the metamorphosis of a seedling that'll be a good fucking cry. Had I had one before I booked that flight, well, I had one last night, and then I tried to crawl. I think you used to call those baby steps. All right. So I'm going to take a brief, a brief intermission. There's a playlist that we have available that Latif will play from. I will return shortly.
Sometimes a girl will come and go. You reach for love, but life won't let you know that in the end you'll still be loving her. But then she's gone, you're all alone. Sign of pain is on my face. Well, a heartbeat stopped, but I won't take the blame. No, no. I gave her all the love I had within. My love was strong. Something went wrong. No. Yes, sir. Love, 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 love. Yes, it does, girl. That love don't love no one. Stop to think about it. Well, oh, when you're down and out, shout about it, tell the world. Ooh-wee. Gotta be more careful about myself. Oh, baby, took me a long time to learn, to learn.
All right, I'm back. All 4-year-olds are fed, and we can continue forward. All right, so we are at Unit 201. I'll wait for Latif to share, and then we can begin. All right, perfect. All right, Unit 201. I wonder if my scent haunts the shower water, or if what I heard was my upstairs neighbors or just us from the year before. I knocked on the ceiling, but no one answered me. At night, I swore I heard stomping above my head. Thing is, it sounded like my daughter during lunchtime, running away from the choo-choo train of carrots smushed in the carpet, and that was her first wake. And that woman who used to say my name before confession, I wonder if the floorboard still accounts for her weight, the pounds that have gone missing since I've become a single father. And new paint keeps our family dinner secret to new tenants. But we did live. We did fight and dance and miscommunicate and added too much salt to our jollof rice. And we did arrive as two, but became three before we departed in our original numbers. And what is the mathematics of a poltergeist if the hallways are a record of a family that didn't keep? Call it an archive, a tomb, but we did live. I wonder if the Uno cards left in the closet are a Ouija board, and if the children who occupy my daughter's room can conjure the first time she rolled over. And I wonder if they could give me that back if I ask nice enough. I wonder if they ever cleaned out the microwave or if the kitchen still smells like two kids who didn't know what to do, but still, we did live. We did. We lived and cried and fucked and double socked infant feet to the ankle when the snow suffocated the winter, and we ignored the mail piled on the counter until it was a mountain. Does the counter weigh the same? How much of my breath How much of my breath lingers in the liminal space of the second floor hallway? I ask the same of the songs I hummed to carry me. Where are the fingerprints on the books we've read? The same for the crib we built. Do the mothers who walk through the living room feel her contractions? Do any lovers occupy my O face? And when I asked her what and when I asked her what they would say if all that were found here was as we left it, she replied, they'd say they tried. All right. So that is the final poem of the second section. Um, Much like the first, opportunity for any reflections, any comments. If not, we can certainly move forward to the third section. Uh,
How about we get some reflections from you?
Give some reflections from me.
Like,
Mm,
so when you're revisiting these pieces,
mm.
what are you feeling?
Um, that's a good question. A lot of memories, like more memories in reading these aloud than when I wrote them. Like most of
Mhm.
these poems are written in the span of 2 months. Um, like I say about Weekend Words, which is a workshop derives from Brother to Brother, facilitated by and created by Ugbo, who's in the chat. Um, I said to Tia actually yesterday, the Brother to Brother, like it saved my writing career. I was done writing after after Sharonda Brown left Black Youth Project and Race Bader closed shop. I was done writing. So I was like, how do I make poetry and fiction work? And I didn't know how to write about what I was tending to emotionally, what I was going to therapy for and struggling over. So when I arrived at Brother to Brother and I heard like you, Latif, and TJ, and everybody else, I was like, what am I doing? I have no like this is raps. But it was a session where Uba used the word rigor to use the word rigor to define another brother's writing, and like woke something up, and I wrote Love Thing for the brother to brother reading, and like I haven't written the same since, you know, that became my new mode of how I write. And so, um, like these were written in like 2 months from that point, but it was more like exercising those emotions. Now I'm remembering I'm remembering these moments, not in like a re-traumatizing way,
Mhm.
but like I'm remembering things. And so um yeah, it's yeah. But you have a question?
I'm not sure if Takia had one. I saw her
Oh,
camera coming. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Alatif, you know me too well on this Zoom. I was kind of like not sure if I was gonna ask my question, but now I guess I will. I also just want to say that I was trying to find, I love the word rigor. Thank you for offering that. Um, because I was trying to find the words to like describe what I'm feeling about the work right now. And um I feel it so profoundly like in my body and in my spirit. And I think that these pieces are written like with such like um deep intention. Like it feels like that they were written like with an intensity and intention. Um and so my question, so now I have so the question that I have is how did you find the the thread? Like what was the process for threading the sections together? If that makes sense.
yeah, no, that makes sense. Um, it happened fairly naturally. I mean, there was some rearranging, but as I found myself like writing my story, it just kind of threaded threaded organically. Um, you know, a prayer, which is the first poem, was one of the last poems I wrote, and that's to like my biological grandfather, that I did not know how to write about. Um, but when by the time I figured it out, it's like a poem like that, which I wrote towards the end of this series. I put to the top like that belongs there. But for the most part, for the rest of the pieces, it just kind of it flowed naturally because it became sort of a project and chronicling how we've arrived metaphorically, literally. Um, and so I think it just kind of happened. It happened that way. As we get towards the end, the last two sections did a lot of rearranging around like, okay, what do I want to go where? So those two sections are more about like how does it operate literarily, like as a reading experience, what fits better. Um, but for the story itself, yeah, that happened fairly organically.
Thank you. And I have another comment and question. Since you called me out, Latif, now I'm rambling. I have a comment, but I have a question. Can you talk about the title? I know it's a title. There's a poem titled, but talk about how'd you come up with that title?
The title was not the original title. There's a poem that's published called "My Daddy Never Taught Me How to Write a Love
Mhm.
Song" that
Mhm.
it's a very different poem, similar intentions, but that got published by Emergent Literary, and that was the only thing I was ever going to do with that title. I was very sold on White Dog, which, like, if you read it rearranged, is White God, and I was very sold on that as a title to like unpack my thoughts about black men and and all that jazz. But something about that title and just recognizing that like so much music was showing up in the pieces um like unintentionally, and that so the music that I was listening to was like guiding the story, was guiding the processes. That title just kept like popping up. And so even before it became the title of this, okay, thank you. Even before it became the title, like it was a title for a digital collage collection. And I thought I was done with it too, but like, it just kept popping up. And so it's like I think this is the title. Um, and so yeah, it came to me. It's like this is what this is. And
Yeah.
um yeah, and here we are.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect title. And the title, you know, My Daddy Never Taught Me How to Write a Love Song. Right, it implies that this writer is right exploring the meaning of love. And what I'm hearing so far, right, like through all of the pieces, it's such a loving body of work, because it's loving even like those the difficult parts or the ugly parts, and loving the process, loving oneself through those processes, and even in loving um those, the other characters that are within this story, right? Loving them enough to tell the truth. Um, and it's just so beautiful. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you. Thank you for those questions and that affirmation.
All right, so we'll take the question from Ugba and then we'll go on to the next section.
Okay. I was struggling to figure out how to turn my camera off. Hold on. What's up? We out here. Happy communion. Um, what was my question? My question was, it's more about, so we talked about when we were like talking about your book and everything about being in conversation with people. And I guess I'm interested, being that I'm assuming this is your first time doing like kind of a larger reading of it like this. What is it like? What is it like reading it out loud? And also, what is coming up for you as like, did you make this community space for us to listen to your work and be here? I guess what is coming up for you is like thoughts around what kind of interactions you want when you're reading your work. Like is any of those thoughts coming up, or yeah, what the feel is you want as you read your work and people are listening. Like, of course, this is a Zoom thing, but I guess I'm interested in in what is your ideal version of sharing your work? Like, is niggas having plates while they listen to you? Like, what is the environment that you can, if it wasn't a Zoom, you know?
No, I appreciate that question, and yeah, I appreciate how you helped me. I'm a plug, by the way. Uber's consultation, artist consultation, writing consultation. Like when I was thinking, who do I want to like look this over, help me find direction? I couldn't think of anybody else. So please, if you're working on anything, especially for for us writers, hit it up. It shifted a lot for like direction that I took took this work. So definitely plug there. Um, for me, that's a good question. I think what I want, I don't necessarily know the space that I want, this to kind of exist in, but I know what I want from people, and it's just to reflect on the hard spots, and to like when they take in the work to think about the things that they consider not writing about, not journaling about, not talking to their therapist about, um, reflect on those hard spots and how to clean them, how to tend to them, how to ask questions about them, how to talk about them. Because that's essentially what I'm doing. And that's what I'd want is people sort of like go through the work, reading, listening, whatever have you, is to think about it. It doesn't even, we talked, it was very much about like, yeah, this is what I want, this is how I wanted to live and how I wanted to live with Black men. I think where I am more so now is that this is how I wanted to live for folks who just engage with it as a conversation about, well, there's this thing, there's this history, there's something that, I can't, because that's how it happened for me. Like it wasn't until I wrote Love Thing that was like, this is how you, this is how you art. This is how you write. This is what that is. Um, and that's, I guess, the revelation I want from others as they're going through it in whatever space is that like, oh, I can, I can write about that. I can write about, what mom did, what dad said. I can write about who's missing, who's gone. I can write about what happened. I could do it with grace and care and kindness. And I can involve them too in the world. Because I was very, what happened to me and my kid, what happened to, what was my family it was it was traumatizing. But there's also someone involved that's not here in this room, and that would never be in this room, but who has to be in the work. And so I struggled for a long time. And I wrote about that. I loved it. Like I struggled for a very long time figuring out how does she show up? And also how do I take care of her? Like regardless of how I feel, she still deserves to be taken. She's my kid's mom. She's a Black mother. She's a Black woman. She's someone I loved. How does she show up in the work? And I had to take a lot of time to sit with that. So it's like, how do people who are in our lives who may not be here, how do they show up in the work? And so I hope that that's what people also take away. I hope that answers your question. I hope it did. Yeah.
All
So,
right, so ready to get back to 2C?
yes, sir. All right.